Okay, good morning. I'll turn it over to Chief Toom with an update on a homicide investigation from this morning.
Thank you, Sergeant Menson. Chief Toom here to give you an update about this morning's events. And I'll, again, keep in mind this is just over 5 hours old now, so very early in the investigation, but we'll provide what information we can. A little after 5 a.m. this morning, we were dispatched along with emergency medical personnel to a weapons violation call near 43rd and Larch Avenue. Multiple calls had come in providing us information that 2 people were shot and that a suspect had ran out of the apartment and was still armed. As you can imagine, this produced quite a police response from both Sioux Falls PD and some, I think, Minnehaha County deputies and Highway Patrol as well. Officers did locate 2 victims in the apartment. One of those victims did die at the scene. Other victim went to the hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. Information was provided that the suspect was still in the area and was armed. As we were learning this information, as you've kind of seen in the past, we just kind of started to close down the areas, and that was several roads were closed as part of this investigation, and nearby businesses were also affected as well. As soon as we recognized that, as soon as reasonably possible, we worked with Sioux Falls School District, School Bus Inc. We could see that this was going to take some time probably, and this would impact school pickups, and so we're trying to work to find alternate pickup spots and work through that information as we're also working through this investigation. Outstanding work by our team, quickly investigating what was taking place and putting information together, and they were able to determine that a suspect had went to a nearby apartment building and was known by the victims in this case, and it was not a random event. The parties involved knew each other, had some sort of relationship, which we probably won't expand on this morning, but just that they have that much at that point. Knowing that the suspect, the information that we had gone into a building, we could confirm that he was still in that building, obviously had and armed. We're able to call out our emergency response team, SWAT, CNU, and all the package that comes along with it to work on taking the suspect into custody. A little bit after 8:30, after we were able to kind of work through the investigation process and procedures, we were able to take that person into custody without incident. Investigations, obviously, like I said, still in the early stages. Specific details or victim information or even suspect information at this point are not going to be provided, as there's obviously, as you can imagine, notifications, things that need to happen on that front. And again, we'll provide investigations as soon as we're able. You may see something later today. It depends on how the speed of the investigation and how we work through things, work with the state's attorney's office, as well as far as the continuance of charges and things of that nature. So, because I know you'll ask, this is the 11th homicide of 2025 and the 3rd homicide of the year at that apartment complex, as I know it's kind of been already identified and worked through. We had 2 earlier in the year, and I can't remember the exact date. I think it was in maybe, I'll have to go back and look. We'll be able to get that for you. And then this one in November would be the 3rd. So again, I'll answer some of the questions that you may have, but again, keep in mind details will be not specific, as there's still some work to be done. And again, out of respect for the victims in these cases, probably some notifications that have yet to be made, as this is only 5.5 hours old.
So are any of the incidents in the other complex area, like, are any of them related to this
It's
one?
a good question, because we quickly went, okay, do these have any relationship to previous ones? At this point, all individual acts, not connected to each other. Some similarities in areas in the complex, but nothing that is the same group of individuals or any relation to that. Because that's a fair question.
Different buildings?
It looks like 2 of them were in the exact same building. Right.
So that would be today's and one from April.
Yeah, so they're in that same kind of area. So again, still details to put together as this kind of suspect moved around a little bit, so we have some pieces to put together on that one as well.
Can you say whether the suspect or the victim's like a man or a woman, how old they are? Can you give that information out?
I can tell you the suspect's a male, and we're just going to leave it at that at that point. Some of that stuff will start to come out as bookings take place, and you'll start to see some of that become more available.
Can you tell us if the suspect lived with the victims?
All we're going to say at this point, because we're still putting those pieces together, is that the associates in this case, suspect, victims, witnesses, were all known to each other to a certain degree. What the relationship, what the nature of their familiarity with each other will be determined as we kind of put together more pieces of the investigation.
And then we got
Is that suspect someone you're familiar with?
It's another individual who we've had repeated dealings with. So
suspect and victims all adults.
yes, the identified, yes. There may be some other people that were in the apartment. We're not able
The
to
two that
determine.
were shot,
Yeah,
I guess.
Yeah, and so those are, but I mean, if we look at this case, there may be other victims in that vicinity, just don't know for sure who all was. In fact, we're still conducting interviews and we're putting those pieces together.
And the victim with non-life threatening injuries, I can't remember if you said, were they transported to the hospital?
Yes, they were.
So the suspect shot at both these people?
What we're provided with is that there was shots fired within this apartment. As a result of that action, 2 individuals were struck by gunfire. And again, we're careful how we pick our words at this point, but as we start to put pen to paper on some further affidavits and things like that, that will provide more specifics on that piece.
Okay, I'm glad to clarify.
Yeah.
Are you able to say the age range or gender of either of these
I would say we're
people?
looking at young adults here.
Okay.
Yep. At least from my initial vantage point of some of the involved parties.
And then for the busing of kids to school, like how many bus stops were affected in the area?
You know, it's usually pretty complicated, and it's good that we have each other, at least with the school district and School Bus Inc., a pretty good relationship where we're like, hey, this is what we got. They start to work on their plans and how they can do notifications and kind of move around a piece. But as you can imagine, an apartment complex, now we also have to facilitate the safe movement of kids, determine what is our perimeter, who needs to shelter in place. And so school district and School Bus Inc. works pretty well with us. And as you can imagine, you've got your SWAT or kind of tactical team at that point in investigation, but there's still a ton of work to do from our patrol and our detectives to kind of make sure that the whole scene can kind of continue to flow. Because obviously you interrupt a major intersection like 41st and Marion, there's going to be traffic issues and other issues that come along with it. But we err on the side of caution when we establish a perimeter. I think you saw a couple weeks ago with the incident downtown. Like we'll always take the safe play when we establish perimeters whenever possible, even though it sometimes impacts businesses and traffic flow.
And the residents in the building, were they given any instructions on what to do?
So typically what we do in these situations is we'll go door to door, especially if we know we have a barricaded suspect at some point or somebody in that area. We'll go door to door, ask people sometimes or escort them away, or if they want to shelter in place, but we'll work through the door to door procedure and see if we can make contact with people.
Do you expect drugs or alcohol to be factors?
Too early to say. Too early. It'd be inappropriate for me to speculate at this point. So
Do you have any idea how many shots were fired? Or
I can just say multiple at this point. I think multiple would be a fair assessment.
like weapons, same? Is it just one weapon, multiple weapons?
You know what? And that'll come out later. But we're looking at the incident itself as what we believe a singular weapon. So
How do you guys establish the road closures in the zone that you're working in?
yeah, it's a good question. We look at what the potential threat is. Is that individual armed or not? What's the line of sight perimeter that we need to establish? But also, as supervisors, as patrol sergeant, I think sometimes people don't realize the responsibility that they carry, especially in the initial ongoing of a scene, is establishing some of these things in a priority. And so some of that's gained with experience. We do training to try to prepare people for that too. And then ultimately, as each layer kind of shows up, there may be tweaks to that perimeter. SWAT may say, hey, we need this area cordoned off, or just kind of the operational area that needs to be. So it's a evolving piece that kind of we work together and we kind of assess each scene for what it is and make adjustments. All right, any other questions? But I wanted to just address this as again, I know these tend to be a pretty impactful story for that neighborhood with some of the other previous events that have taken place there. We know that we've worked with property managers. We've had our crime prevention officer work through that complex. I'd work with some of the people in that neighborhood. And again, it's gonna naturally talk about this, but it also is a thing for us to talk about. We talk about law enforcement's role within these. We respond a lot of times when tragedies have happened. We've been talking a lot about early intervention, right? Early intervention both for youth, both early intervention within the criminal justice system. Speaking in broad generalities here, and while this story will become one of another homicide within our city, I also want people to take note and kind of understand the role they play within community as far as working in crime prevention, but also working to support people so they don't necessarily maybe get into some of these situations. Broad speaking statement, again, but every time I have to talk about one of these or get reported to one of these, I can usually look back and say, before it gets to this point. So again, thanks for your interest. We'll give you more updates as it comes up, and I think that will conclude our press conference. Thank you.
Thank you.